Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the 134th session of Majlis Al-Khonji via Zoom. Please allow me to introduce our guest for this session, Dr. Sausan Al-Riyami, the Director of Oman Hydrogen Center, OHC, from German University of Technology in Oman, GUtech. She completed her degree in physics with a minor in geology at Sultan Qaboos University, and she has a master's degree in science and engineering with honors IGSES awards. And in 2013, she completed her PhD of Science in Applied Science for Electronics and Material at Kyushu University, Japan. She served as a guest researcher at the Institute for Materials Research, Belgium, during which time she expanded her knowledge of Sc.D applications. She worked at GUtech as an assistant professor before joining the Research Council, TRC, in Oman as a renewable energy researcher in 2015. From 2016 to 2018, she was a guest researcher as a project manager at both Helmholtz Center Berlin, HZB, and German Research Center for Geosciences, Germany. She has occupied a senior expert position since 2019 at TRC and was assigned to be EJAD's director at the Ministry of Higher Education Research and Innovation from March 2021 till Feb 2022. From Feb 2022, she was hired to be the director of Oman Hydrogen Center. She has received several outstanding awards and a few outstanding research funds granted from Japan and has published more than 25 scientific papers and articles in scientific journals, energy magazines, and newspapers. Her recent focus includes scientific management, material science, and applied nanotechnology for PV, renewable energy, solar thermal technology, hydrogen as new alternative technology economy, and topics related to energy transition. Welcome, Dr. Sausan, to Majlis Al-Khonji, and over to you. Thank you very much all for joining us.
Thank you very much, Rehan, for the nice introduction, and thank you for the Al-Khonji, Majlis Al-Khonji, to invite me to speak about the hydrogen. As you know, that hydrogen became one of the most interesting topics here, at least in Oman, since the last 2 years, since 2020. And due to that, a lot of actions in the level of the country itself has been taken in this regard. I'm not here to tell you more about the technology or the details about the economy statement of the hydrogen itself. We are here today more to exchange a bit our opinion about the future of hydrogen in Oman as an alternative economy resources. When it is how this story all started, please allow me to tell you, at least according to my knowledge, when hydrogen has been entered here as Oman as a topic, before people are thinking about it as, okay, why do we really need it? We have the sun, we have the wind, so why do we need hydrogen as an energy or a green energy here in Oman? Plus, hydrogen production is quite expensive. We do not see photovoltaic recently here on top of our building. On top of our building, we do not see the winds occupying the south of Oman area. So why do we introduce hydrogen? And if we introduce hydrogen, which kind of hydrogen could be? Is it gray hydrogen, which it is gonna be explained to you all these color, but is it the hydrogen producer from green energy, or is a hydrogen producer from CO2 high chain? So those questions are very important from the environmental side. And the most important question, why do we produce something a bit expensive to us to produce it? There is alternative energy that we could use and we could utilize. Then an initiatives really, I witnessed this to German University of Technology in Oman, that they make a very nice initiative in 2000 ended of 2019, beginning of 2020, that they organized a nice workshop to introduce us to the opportunity of Oman to get the hydrogen there as alternative energy. I myself have been inspired from the workshop when I occupied the position of renewable energy head of at GUtech, and we went to the Ministry of Energy and Minerals, and we introduced the idea of nation project called Visibility Study of Oman Hydrogen Economy, or Hydrogen Economy Terminal. So the purpose or the idea is not to get it as energy alone, is to make it a source of economy income to Oman, to diverse the source of economy, which it is in well alignment with the Vision 2040. It's not to depend on oil, it's not to depend on gas. Yes, there is a lot of project has been done for renewable energy, and now we wish to utilize those projects because we can produce more with what we need. So hopefully we can utilize it towards our economy. So this is a brief introduction about the way that hydrogen entered to Oman and as a hot topic because we think it might be our future economy. Now, perhaps you might hear a lot of people talking about, are gonna be a blue hydrogen producer, or we are a green hydrogen producer, or shall we move to a gray hydrogen? Actually, you will hear a lot of colors, not only green, gray, blue. There is multi-colors of hydrogen, and the color is a link always to the process, how hydrogen has been produced. For example, if it is a green, that means we are hunting renewable energy, electricity and water as a source of the hydrogen itself, and the process is electrolysis. If you talk about it to be pink, we are again hunting it to be in electoral mode, and the source of the energy entering to that method is the nuclear power. Blue is different, it's SMR and gasification with carbon capture. And the source is the methane gas, so you are cracking it somehow. Turquoise is source again is methane, and it is pyrolysis methodology. It's another way of chemical. And gray is the methane or coal. That means you are using, you are not using green energy in this cases to produce the hydrogen. Yellow, it's another term has been introduced, and it is using solar energy, whether it is thermal or whether it is photovoltaic, or that means thermal or electrical. Brown color is from gasification, and always coming from fossil fuel. Interest color is black. It's always combined with the gray, but that is mainly from coal. It's not from methane. The white one is process fracking, the coming source from underground. That means it's natural occurring hydrogen under the ground. Some people are still hunting the possibility to get this hydrogen from the under of the ground, and depend about the visibility or economical assessment here, whether it's useful to gather all this hydrogen and then liquefy it and then store it, or what should you do with it? So I think it's depend about a lot of factors. I cover it a lot because quite interest and a bit effort has been moved now on the region in this regard. The stake of hydrogen energy in the future, I think in the future we will really gonna need hydrogen anyway due to several circumstances, but transportation, in my opinion, and industrial energy use is a bit heavy here, and and it's a bit heavy here, and we think most of CO2 coming really from those two areas. And if we working hard toward greenify them somehow, I think we could meet the CO2 promise to be reduced in certain year. This, at least in my opinion, we can always discuss it and argue about it, or putting some facts around it. So the demand for sure is going to be needed for energy in general. And you can see how affected the country could be if the gas is not available, or the price of oil is affected. Perhaps you recall the 2016, where Oman was also facing oil price reduction, and then much of our activity also has been affected. So diversification of the income or economy of Oman, in my opinion, one of important tasks that hand to hand must be checked, and we deliver it to multi-diverse income to Oman. So here is the initiatives toward hydrogen-based economy since 2020 until yesterday. I did not go deep due to the time limitation to list everyone's effort, but it's good to tell that the government, the investor, the industry, and R&D innovation sector working together toward one aim is to verify or to success the hydrogen-based economy system in Oman. I started with the government because I give it really a big credit here, because they play a good role to strengthen or to accelerate the effort to diverse the source of energy and to diverse the source of economy. There are almost 9 remarkable initiatives here provided from the Ministry of Energy and Minerals, and most of them are to align the effort of the industry, the academia, and the investors to avoid the duplication and to add more benefit into it. And from the industrial viewpoint, there is 5 remarkable, at least announced project. I'm sure that everybody aware about the project has been signed at least a few days ago between Aqua Power, OQ, and Air Products. And the investors are playing good role when they are knocking our door to invest a huge amount of money. Either they are from local or international key players. They would love to have a role here to have hydrogen as a production, and they secure at least the off-takers for it. From R&D and innovation, which it is close to my heart and it is my area somehow, I think we are moving, but we are moving slow, but we are moving towards producing some effort to gather the knowledge before we start the big projects. And the lesson learned here is the oil and gas sector. The oil and gas sector started since a long time, and we empower our capability. When we say capability here, the capacity is the human resources, the knowledge transfer. So we believe if we started from now having an R&D hub for hydrogen, it will be great effort to develop our operators in the future in those projects that we have. So it's not too early to start. We know that we are not in the level of cut-edge technology, but if we have the industry here, if we have the plant here, if we map our challenges and the gap that we have also here. I think we are in a level to solve our problem together with our international partners and to keep the knowledge in-house, in country, and to build on it to develop a new technology adapted to our own challenges and environment need. So, starting to introduce the audience to Oman Hydrogen Center, I'm not sure if everybody aware about it, and that's why I will go a bit in detail for it. That Oman Hydrogen Center was founded in 2020, supported by Oman Development for Hydrogen Economy Task, and a bit of interest has been there at that moment from different countries when it has been launched. The area of our activity not limited to research development, which it is a must for any center or education. We're caring a lot about networking and communication, hydrogen economy, and that's, in my opinion, is a great chance to exchange knowledge between countries, because hydrogen is not a person or one country task. It cannot success without agreement or alignment with many players, especially when we are talking about the off-takers. We need at least to have a ground rule to say what is the minimum allow hydrogen to be exported. So you have to agree with your off-taker. OHC cooperation and affiliation. That's great news to tell that we have a strategic partner like Oman Vision 2040. GUtech became a member in National Hydrogen Alliance that had been founded in 2021, led by the Ministry of Energy and Minerals. Siemens Oman, GUtech being signed a memorandum of understanding with it, and soon Oman Hydrogen Center will sign with Siemens Oman an agreement to develop R&D in the regard of hydrogen technology. We also have a key players we are about to sign with him about the cooperation to develop some pilot plan for teaching and training purposes. Few days ago, we became officially a cooperation partner in the II Desert Energy and the MENA Hydrogen Alliance. We aim here to exchange our knowledge with them, publish together, and map the effort and the opportunity there in the MENA. It will be announced officially with the coming days. Laboratory of Engineering there in Aachen University, which it is a affiliation for German University of Technology here in Oman. We're also discussing 3 potential partners, 2 partners with us here in Oman, and 2 here in Oman and 1 outside Oman. There's several projects has been linked by now to Oman Hydrogen Project, the training center of a global champs, the task of the roadmap of hydrogen economy that the Ministry of Energy and Minerals are now taking lead of it, and we are waiting to hear more about the roadmap of hydrogen economy in Oman directed by the ministry. And also we are cooperating with the ELAF, developing one tool have been made in 100% Omani effort and trying to patent it somehow. I will give it TRL 11.7 because we did not test it yet on the ground. It's under progressing, and we hope to improve it more to be on the level of commercial time. There is for now the hydrogen center is within the campus of GUtech building, but we are aiming to have our own building soon, a sponsorship with one of our partner, and that building will be similar to the one that you have it here on the picture on your right side, and you will see that it is a 3D printing and you could, if you are interested in this topic, we could link you to the person in charge to tell you more about it, about the design. Why it is nice and important? Because the Omani team, they're able to modify the material that they put it inside the 3D printer machine before they print the house itself, and give it as the biggest, first, largest building over the world, because the material used is a bit different, and that's what give it the number one largest building. Our plan to the building is to be 2 floors, so I hope to be the more larger than the previous one, and we hope to make it as green as possible by using water recycling, by using photovoltaic, by using a smart option for the building for saving energy and increasing EE, energy efficiency. What is the main activity so far? I just would like to tell you that I have been appointed to Oman Hydrogen Center since February, beginning of February, and my main focus will be for the coming 2 years at least, the research and development to be aligned with our local industry, raising the awareness about hydrogen, that it is not very safe element, but we could control it. We try to shake hands with the key partners to build an internship or summer school or summer academy. It's all under discussion now. Of course, we would love to introduce a course for hydrogen, but usually there is no specific course for hydrogen. It's bear with sustainable energy. Training certifications, like if you get trained with us, you've been certified in certain level. We do some technical consultants, especially for a company who reach us from outside Oman and would love to enter the market here in Oman. Technical consultant when it came also for technology transfer. We review the technology, we map it, we advise if it is possible to utilize it here with our climate, or they need an adaptation to implement it here in the ground. We have also plan to host some conferences, webinars, workshop to serve the national agenda here, and to increase the networking and the awareness. We also shake hands with the people who work about hydrogen certification. Finally, we are quite interested about the transportation area, because as I mentioned before, most of CO2 coming from that area. And hopefully with Oman Hydrogen Center, we could enable Oman's success in the future hydrogen-based economy. That's all today from my side, and welcome for any comments or questions. Back to you, Riham.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Sausan, for this very informative and comprehensive session. And we will start to take open the floor for the Q&A session. Dear guests, you are welcome to raise your questions through the chat or by using the raise hand option. We might start with His Excellency Khalil Al-Khonji, if you would like to talk about the subject. Thank you very much.
No, thanks. I just would like to welcome everyone and thank Dr. Sausan for this enlightening presentation about the green energy. And we would like to hear from our guest here about this subject. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Khalil. There is a question, Dr. Sausan, in the chat. I think it was for the beginning of the presentation from Mr. Hussein Al-Lawati. He's saying, can yellow be considered as a subset from green? I think he's talking about the slides where you have the colors
Yeah, thank you, Hussein Lawati. I bear my opinion with you when the color is coming. That's why I remove the black, because it's somehow considered to be gray. So I'm not the one who decide the color, unfortunately, but yeah, it is the color that people now use to talk to each other and identify it very fast. Because if you talk about the green energy, nuclear is green, but it's not renewable, for example. So they wanted to give everything is a color. So the area of solar is very heavy. So maybe they wanted some big name for them. They called themselves yellow. I'm not sure about the background, but it came by agreement around the world. How do you identify the colors?
Thank you, Dr. Sausan. Mr. Abdullah Shariqi, thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Thank you all for arranging this meeting. Thank you, Dr. Sausan, for your presentation. I am Abdullah Shariqi, Managing Director of Elixir Investments Company. We have interest for R&D actually, but we want to know from your opinion, what is the most hassles in hydrogen production? Is it in electrolyzer or it is in the power system, conversion system?
See, to be honest with you, as a scientist, people always see R&D in every single thing, even if it is working 99% of efficient. They will say there is 1% to be improved and we will work for it. So to tell you, everything is important. For me, as Sausan here in Oman, I think a lot of research has been done for photovoltaic so far. And look, since 70 years ago, or whenever this technology has been invented, there's still a major, massive labs are still working to improve the efficiency or diverse at least the material coming from it. So answering you, Abdullah, shortly, it is wide, you cannot tell. And also, if you say, I want to improve the technology of hydrogen, again, in my opinion, I might be wrong, but people can always discuss it more, and I could change my opinion if effect come. But in my opinion, it could be a catalyst to improve the hydrogen as a liquid transport element, because it's quite expensive now to produce the hydrogen itself. And for Oman here, the source of hydrogen is important to me. From where we got all this hydrogen? We got it from desalination water. As a Gulf country, country in this MENA region, water is a big element. We cannot go and say, yes, we will produce massive amount of hydrogen without levelize the cost of the production of our desalined water. So I think the production itself, the source of hydrogen is very important. Electrolyzer, if you think about that technology now, not from the now it is in the middle of the process. The electrolyzer is using usually pure water, is not saline water. So if someone interested to do some mini magic to make the electrolyzer within having the saline water and do this desalination inside it and produce the hydrogen in less cost, I think this is a still interest area. We hear aroma that some big company have it, but not in commercial level. And the other, I think it is still interested, but for me, those two main areas are critical, still critical in hydrogen.
Noted, Doctora. If there is no one else waiting for, I can ask another question.
Please go ahead. Very fast, because we have some questions in the queue. Thank you very much.
Please, you can take other questions and I will return later.
No worries, you can ask, it's okay.
What is our benchmark for price? What is the benchmark for our price? US dollar per kg of hydrogen.
I don't have it now written with me. I don't recall it. I'm sorry, because it's really diverse. If you get the water from desalination or you crack the hydrogen itself. But if you're interested, Abdullah, I could write it in summary and share it with you.
Sure. Lastly, Doctor, if you can share your contact detail with us, we can contact you offline so we can see what we can do together.
So, Riham, could you kindly note this point with you and connect us with Abdullah?
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdullah Shariqi. We will take another 2 questions together, and then we'll give the chance to the persons to answer. Mr. Abdul Rida and Mr. Larkin. So, Mr. Abdul Rida, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Rehan. And thank you, Majlis Khonji, for this very interesting topic. I have 2 short questions. So one is, what is the USP, unique selling proposition of Oman in producing hydrogen, since any country can produce hydrogen? So why Oman? What makes us unique? What is our advantage? And the second question is the storage challenges of hydrogen. What are the storage challenges? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take the other question from Mr. Larkin. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for inviting me to your meeting. I'm from United Kingdom, and I'll just explain a little bit about what we're doing over here with hydrogen. And we are mainly pursuing green hydrogen, and that's a government initiative that we have over here. There's quite a lot of work being done already. We have now small villages in the UK that are being powered by offshore wind power and green hydrogen. There's a great demand for the green hydrogen over here. I won't remember the figures, but it's a massive supply by 2050. Our government calls it the race to zero over here. I don't know if it's the same terminology worldwide. Our angle on this one, we are a company that has spent most of our life in the oil field industry and the offshore industry. And because there is a race to zero, the best way in UK to do this is to try and avoid bureaucracy. Now, that's probably not the same in Oman, but we have a lot of bureaucracy over here. So our plan at this moment in time is called MOWPU, MOWPU. And our plan is based upon repurposing old oil field equipment, all vessels that are cold stacked in the Middle East, in UK, in Europe, in China, all over the world, that will never be used for offshore oil production any further. The demand is too low. But they are fantastic vessels in terms of size and capability to provide a mobile fleet for pursuing the wind power and ultimately for converting that into green hydrogen. So that's why our interest in this particular market, it's probably quite different from yours, Doctor, which yours is research and development. We're out there trying to get the green hydrogen into the UK, and to be honest, we leave some of the aspects that your previous caller talked about, such as the storage, to others who are researching that part of it. But it's quite developed over here. It's just the scale that the government requires, and that we believe we have a very good plan, a very low cost plan, which can start the initiative right now. And that is the only way that the UK is ever going to meet this race to zero by 2050. So that's our involvement. It is actually, our plan is also exportable. So whatever we do in UK, we can do in other countries around the world. Even Oman, it needs engineering facilities to build and repurpose the vessels. But that's what we're doing. I think it's very interesting what other parts of the world are doing. I think the initiative in Europe is very high on green hydrogen. I know that German involvement in this project, which is welcomed, of course. But that's us. So it's nice to talk to like-minded people, and I hope at the end of this meeting we can have all the contacts. And eventually, I'm quite happy to do a PowerPoint presentation like this on what we're doing, which has the figures that we can produce. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Larkin. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Sausan, would you like to comment or answer the question? And then we will move to another set of questions.
Thank you very much, Riham. I think I will answer Abdurrida first. Why Oman? And if someone else would love to comment from Omani side, I think everybody know why Oman and the storage challenges. I think those two questions has been raised by Abdurrida. And in my opinion, why Oman is a lot of reason. There is an input for the green energy. We are having the sun, we have the wind potential. We could produce the green energy. So the country who hunt green products, they will not face a problem when they are asked by their own government for a green product, for example, or a green output, not the blue hydrogen one. Also, Oman have the port itself for it. And simple answer that I think I concluded after mapping many input, in my opinion, the demand for hydrogen will be large in the coming future. So the one who will partner with Oman, he will need to partner again with other countries, because even Oman will not be enough to them for their needs. When I say this, I'm pointing to Europe somehow. So at least this is, in my opinion, it's open for any discussion. For storage challenges, yes, it is a challenge itself. How do you store hydrogen and in a temperature like 50 degrees here in Oman? So we're gonna face a challenge, technical challenge, when we would love to transport it, because transportation considered to be somehow a sort of storage. Yes, there is a technical challenges, but yes, there is researchers and technology available, as Blinken has been already said. Technology is there. It's also how to scale it up. So those mainly the two challenges I could highlight for today. Back to you, Riham, and I think the point Blinken has been saying, it's quite interested, and I also echo his request. It would be nice to share the contact after the session for those who are interested to discuss it further.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Sausan. Mr. Mike Hansen, please go ahead.
Thank you, Riyam, and thank you, Majlis Al-Khonji, and thank you, Dr. Sausan, for your explanation. So my question, with such a terrific increase in demand, I think I saw on your chart in 2020, something like 70 million metric tons of hydrogen, and in 2050, scaling up by a multiple to about 600 million tons. So who are the front runners in the world right now who are adopting hydrogen, and for which industries are they supplying hydrogen to? I'm guessing heavy industry like steel making, it may be, but how are they overcoming the storage challenges, the transportation challenges? Because in some research I did before this meeting, I seem to see that hydrogen is being supplied, as I just mentioned, to heavy industry, but others talk about it might be compressed into smaller units. Maybe we could see hydrogen vehicles challenging and maybe replacing electric vehicles. So it seems like there's two directions. But what does Oman have to do with the sun we have? And all the studies show the area around Sohar as being excellent for capture, and down around Dukum with the wind. How do we become a front runner? Because listening to you, I think we're still at early stages. If I could ask you, please.
Thank you, Mike, for your question. If I understood it correct, is first is the behavior over the world, and then how do we maximize it, or how do we overcome it here in Oman? So if you follow the report from IEA, IRENA, and the Hydrogen Council, the one that I show the diagram from it, I think we could see that most of the energy go to heavy industry and transportation. And at least that's what I realized, that they really in need when it comes to heavy industry. They need a huge amount of gasoline, and they need a lot of amount of gas when it came to transportation. Moving the transportation to the field of hydrogen by replacing cars, for example, motors or vehicles, trucks, or maybe ships to utilize the hydrogen, if it is green, I think this will not help them only to use it as a fuel. They are helping them on other tasks, which is decarbonizing their activities. If they want to achieve the net zero emission in the future, they cannot rely on a gray product or CO2 high demand of energy. So I think these are moving in parallel between policies, two policies. It's not about producing hydrogen and utilize it. It's also how do we decarbonize. We could produce electricity from a nuclear, from green energy, wind, solar, but certain countries, they do not have the chance for that. And even if they have it, they cannot store it. It's in terms of electricity, so they prefer to store it in different chemical product that they can use it when they need it. So this is one. The second part about it here in Oman, are we really in early stage? I don't think so. The whole world in the early stage for hydrogen, because we do not have yet the standardization finalized certificate for hydrogen. How do we produce it? How do we market it? How do we do it? We are in early stage to do the big commercial shipping for hydrogen, at least in Gulf country, but the other country already started to practice it even in a pilot scale like Australia and Japan when it's come to this level. How Oman plan it, I think starting from 2020 to have a roadmap to Oman, that the big company play a heavy role. I think the government, the industry, and the academia are now in a well alignment that we know what we want, we are targeting what we need, and we are hunting it. Now we just need to map what could be an enabler to accelerate it to happen tomorrow, not after a year. So this is, in my opinion, I rely on the decision makers to hunt or to about their mapping when they map the priority. And how to accelerate it is to refocus our interest to filling the gap and connecting the dots between the areas.
Can I just add on, please? Thank you for that explanation. Is it possible, I guess it must be, that our existing customers for oil and gas, like Japan and China, would Could they be future customers for us here in Oman for hydrogen?
I will say it's not a customer, they are off-takers. If they would love to come and shake hands with Oman, I think it's depend eventually about the deal, how they do it with our partner, the industrial partner. For me, with my limited knowledge in that area, when it comes to deal, I think it's really based on or off-taker, what his demand, what he really need. Then we return back one step and said what Oman could offer. If someone came now and said, I wanted tomorrow to be green with X price, it might be impossible because it is quite expensive now. So the deal came with, of course, many negotiation, but also with some reality in the topic. So the off-taker have to list his wish list, and then we map it with what Oman can offer to him or her.
Thank you very much, Dr. Susan.
Most welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mike. We have another question from Dr. Mohammed Al-Rizaqi from Sc.D. Dr. Mohammed, would you like to ask your question, please?
Thank you so much, Riham. I would like also to thank Dr. Sausan for a very useful presentation and also the useful information. The first part of my question that I put on chat, it was on the roadmap, and I think you already answered this part. And also to comment on what Mike he just mentioned about the beneficiaries, because this technology, it relies very little on crude products or raw materials, where it relies on technology and expertise. And by this, I think most of the countries or the oil importers, they could advance in technology and they could produce their own self-sufficiencies from the hydrogen. So I think the main beneficiaries will be for equipment exporters and the expertise in the field. And what you have, of course, in GUtech, you'll be enhancing the trainings, the technology, the R&D sections. And this is really amazing. I think this would also be helpful for the future. So that's all. But I think my main question, Riham, it's been already answered. It was about the roadmap. And I think what Dr. Sausan, she mentioned in her slides, it was completed by Muheri, the Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation. And that's all about my question. Now, the last part of my question, it was about the percentage of contributions. And I think as we all know that the oil and gas sector, it contributes a lot to the Omani economic outputs, the GDP. And will the hydrogen, of course, be contributing much? Will it be a significant, like above 5–10% or less? That would also be another question. So thank you very much, Dr. Sausan. Wish you all the best. And we're looking forward, of course, for more cooperation, inshallah, in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much. We have more questions. Engineer Azhar. And this is Nasr Al-Barwani. Okay, Engineer Azhar, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Majlis Al-Khonji. Thank you, Dr. Sausan, for this, Susan, for this presentation. Really, my first question is regarding the transportations. You mentioned something that we want to diverse the resource for energy. And really, if we want to use hydrogen for vehicles or cars or any mode of transportation, I think we need to change everything mechanically in these kind of modes of transportation, because hydrogen, it needs special machines, special reservoirs, special things. This is need or will stay on the same design of this kind of vehicles. Second question is that if we want to produce hydrogen from seawater, what is the side effect or what is the steps that we are going to do it before producing hydrogen to the seawater in order to get benefit of the availability of seawater in Oman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Nasra Al-Barwani, please go ahead.
Hello, Dr. Sausan. So I'm Nasra Dalwani, and I'm working with Mr. Abdullah Ashuraiqi. We're trying to research on this matter. So my question was, since we're using oil and gas, I was thinking why we don't use oil and gas to know the process of providing and getting oxygen. So since we are going to know the process, then we can switch to green energy. So my point here, I was maybe confused on why are we using solar system instead of energy. I don't know if you get my point.
Thank you, Nasra. Dr. Sausan, would you like to comment on both questions, please?
Yeah, sure. I just saw early that Talal Al-Oakley is also asking a question. Maybe Talal, we give him a chance to ask on live then.
Yeah.
But before of that, I answer. Zahra is not answering. It's kind of brainstorming with her. She's also an engineer in this field. Perhaps, yes, there is a way to modify your electrical, normal car to be an electrical car, but I'm not a mechanical engineer, so I don't know the detail. But I heard that many interest company are thinking deeply about it, because you cannot come and announce that, guys, you cannot use your car now, use the alternative car. But the talk are, and they are thinking, at least I know about electrical car because we thought about it to be a solar car, and you could make a bit of modification and switch it to electrical car. For hydrogen car, it's quite different because you have to have this small cell fuel inside your car, but I don't know how easy you can transfer this car from gasoline car to hybrid car or to hydrogen or fully hydrogen car. So it's a bit easy to us to see the electrical car, but I hope the demonstration will start there soon in hydrogen car here in Oman. Then we could also measure how easy we can, you as user, use the hydrogen vehicles. For the other question, I'm not sure if I didn't, if I get it correct, but did you mean, Azhar, that using a lot of water from the sea might harm the environment?
Yes, just because it is available here in Oman, and it will be easy to produce hydrogen from it. What is the side?
Yeah, exactly.
Consequences.
Yeah, I think your point is quite interesting. The sea is a lot, so if we use it, the ice might melt it. So there is an equation how to calculate all of this balance and in nature. But in my opinion, at least me as Sausan, I think we should not play a lot when the balance came for nature. We have to keep the nature as it is because it balances herself. But if we took the water from the sea, I think a nice environmental assessment study need to be taken also by putting all of these projects beside the coastal land. What is the risk, the nature risk that could be happen in that region? So we are risking some of our project. I bear my opinion with you. I do not have the study in front of me, but it will worth to have the environmental assessment for such a things. It's interesting topic, Engineer Azhar. I think also Nasra Al-Barwani, I'm not sure if I understood correctly your question, so please correct me if it's not what you meant. You mean, why don't we go directly using gasoline to produce hydrogen and byproduct of it, oxygen, and we turn to use the green energy? Is this your question, Nasra?
Yes, so by researching how to separate hydrogen from oxygen, for example, if we're using water, by using air membrane, for example, to separate. I've done this experiment by using the regular source of energy, which is gas. And the process was very clear, and we used Aspen to design the separation. So if we're able to separate it by using the regular energy that we use daily, then can we use solar system with the same process that we're using when we're separating it by using oil and gas?
Actually, then my understanding was correct. Thank you very much, Nasra. The answer for your question, because we want to move green, and sooner or later the gas will be expired somehow. We will gonna be run away from our gas. Alternative energy is a must. So for Oman, it's easy to go to solar or wind. And for our economy, if we don't have gas, we have to export something else, maybe food, maybe fish, maybe anything else. So we said perhaps hydrogen can play as our alternative source of energy or alternative source of economy in Oman. It's an opinion. It might not answer your question, but this is the whole purposes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll just take Dr. Talal Al-Awlaqi's question before we move to Mr. Larkin. Dr. Talal, would you like to raise your question?
Did you say Mr. Larkin? It was just a little while back when you were talking about the colours of hydrogen. Here in UK, unfortunately, we can't get hydrogen from the power from solar energy because the sun doesn't shine enough. You're very lucky in Oman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Larkin, for the comment. I think you are quite right, yeah. Dr. Talal, please go ahead.
Thank you all for the excellent presentation. Thank you, Dr. Sausan, and shukran to Majlis Khonji. As we have seen, since the COP momentums came and lots of regulations in terms of carbon dioxide tax and credit, that gave a momentum for all the alternative energies projects like the hydrogen or winds, offshore winds as well solars, to scale up. In Oman currently, we don't have such a regulatory framework where it can incentivize the current hydrogen projects if we would like to generate a hydrogen from a winds or from a solars. If we just have a balance sheet of a hydrogen project or a P&L cash flow, how hydrogen can be feasible if it's standalone out of any taxations or out of any credit? Will that be sufficient enough to kick off a project, or does it need such an incentive programs? And also would be keen to hear from our colleague from UK experience, if we just decouple the carbon credit mechanisms or any taxation incentives, will those projects stand in their own? Yeah, thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Talal. I think since you would love to hear from UK, let's give the opportunity to Mr. Larkin. Could you comment on Dr. Talal, please?
I'm not quite sure what you're asking there, but I see that green hydrogen will become a commodity just like oil and gas that we have at this moment in time. There is a value for it right now. In UK, we're paying £4,900 per metric tons of green hydrogen over here. Nobody in the UK seems to know whether that will go up or that will go down, because it rather depends on how serious the countries of the world want to take this race to zero, and stop the reliance on fossil fuels, because fossil fuels is going to be about for several years, probably 2050 to 2060, with the existing resources around the world. But as we have seen in various conventions, it is destroying the planet at this moment in time. So we must do something about this. And green hydrogen seems to be a really good way of tackling this problem. So I personally think, after watching the oil price over the last 45 years, that the demand will grow for green hydrogen and decline for fossil fuels. And that will mean that green hydrogen price will go up just the same as oil and gas does right now. Probably the only difference is it won't fluctuate so much as the oil and gas, because virtually every country in the world will be able to produce its own green hydrogen if it has sufficient energy from wind power or solar power or the other versions of power. So it's all going to be commodity based, and I don't think anybody, a lot of people smarter than me are trying to give answers to this, but I don't think anybody really knows what the price of green hydrogen will be in the future. Is that the answer to the question, or am I just waffling?
Talal, if you want to comment on him before I add my comment.
Yeah, I think that's clear. Thank you very much. The only part was maybe it is the taxation systems in UK regarding how much of adding values of tax of the carbon dioxide added to incentivize the hydrogen project, or is that something that is marginal? That was maybe the other part.
Okay. You also asked Dr. Talal about the government support, the incentives. If I understood correct, how do they gonna produce, and if it is a bit expensive, what is the incentives to go with those projects? I think, in my opinion, and which what I realize, it's the off-taker. The off-taker is the one who would love to go with the green, because their country insists to them to go green, for a green product, for example, or to go with a green energy source. So this is one from the off-taker side, and the one from our side, our colleagues there in the ministry still working on those policy and regulation, at least as I learned from last presentation I attended at Sultan Qaboos University, that even a successful event about hydrogen there, I think they're still working on it as a policy and regulation, not only for hydrogen, also for renewable energy sector.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sausan. Dr. Talal, thank you very much, and Mr. Larkin. We have another question from Dr. Firas.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and apologies for coming in late. I missed the earlier part of the presentation. It's always a pleasure to hear Dr. Sausan and to be part of this forum. It's not a question, but a participation in addressing the previous question, both about the carbon credits, the taxation system, and the forecast of hydrogen prices. If I may contribute to that earlier question, please.
Please go ahead, Dr. Firas. If I knew that you are here, I will give this to you.
All good. I came late and I apologize for that.
No problem.
So, with regards to the question on the price of hydrogen, if you look at the forecast in the market, and we heard that in the UK the price is 4.9 dollars per kilogram, or I think that he mentioned pounds, and he used the metric tons equivalent. I usually talk in dollars per kilogram. If we look at the equivalent price of gray hydrogen today, it's $1. In Oman, it's actually less than $1. So for hydrogen to be economically viable, given our current economic circumstances without causing further inflation, green hydrogen needs to hit the $1 per kilogram price point to really have any impact in the economy. And the forecast today with the learning curve for the technologies required to achieve that, forecast that it could reach that point by 2035, 2040. So hydrogen will always be on a decline price curve, but I don't see it going up. It's starting today at around $6 per kilogram. And eventually it will drop down. And if it doesn't drop down, then it's not really the solution to the problem we're facing. Now, whether we can make margins out of it compared to the oil and gas. So for us, nations who are looking to become producers, that is where the main challenge is. Today, the cost of production of oil and gas, let's say, is around $20, $10, $30, depending on where you are in the world. And it's selling today at nice prices above $80. So there's a healthy margin that's being made. That is not the case with hydrogen, at least not green hydrogen. Green hydrogen today, if you make a cost plus kind of revenue, so IRRs of less than 10%, I think you're lucky. So again, is there an economic incentive to really go big in the beginning, particularly if you're not using it for your domestic market? That is something for producing nations to really consider deeply about and to think about how they want to phase the projects and how to decarbonize their own industry and then how to supply the rest of the world. And then to come to the question from Dr. Talal about carbon credits. I think carbon credits or taxation systems are definitely necessary, but they're not necessary to make green hydrogen workable. For me, the two are linked, but they're also separate. Sorry, someone's unmuted by mistake, I think.
Yeah, sorry.
With regards to the carbon credits, today we are, in a lot of economic systems, you look at externalities, and if you're causing damage with your product, whether it's a chemical processing plant you do, and you're having effluents going into the water stream and rivers and whatnot, then naturally the nation will come to you and force you and put the systems around you, whether they're environmental, to safeguard that you mitigate that you minimize it, and that the damage is controlled, and that you are charged for whatever damage you're causing to the immediate environment. Unfortunately, in the case of carbon dioxide, it was not agreed upon its impact until perhaps 2-3 decades ago. And I think some rulers until 5 years ago were refuting the carbon impact on nature. So one, it was not recognized as a problem early enough. And the second, which is the main problem, is that unlike the localized damage to the environment, carbon is something that is diluted and spread over the whole world. And one nation can spew a lot, and the industrialized nations really benefited a lot from the third industrial revolution. And it was not in their interest or the world's interest to put brakes on it. Now, when we're teetering towards catastrophe, we're talking about, okay, what can we do? And now there's an example or a phrase I heard. They consider the atmosphere being treated as a sewer of the world, and we're just spewing carbon into it. And I think that's a very true analogy. And there's no governing entity, the United Nations, now trying to do that. It's something that takes a lot of work. You have also the developing countries say we did not have our chance of claiming our economic growth to be able to be curtailed. And these are the things that are being discussed in COP. But to address your point, Dr. Talal, I think it's absolutely essential for our existence to be able to have a system that charges for the externalities, the damage that is being caused. It's not that we only need to incentivize the green products. That is absolutely necessary. But we need to reflect the correct and true cost of the damage we're doing on the products, with the hydrocarbons and the other dirty fuels that we're using, that today are not. And that is the key element to keep in mind. It's not only incentivizing the green, it's actually bringing in the true cost of the damage of what we're doing today. And then to find a way which you can get the different economic blocks to accept. And I think Europe actually is the one that's leading in this today, rather than any other bloc out there. And I leave it at here, and I'm sorry if I took a long time addressing this question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Firas. Dr. Sausan, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think what Dr. Farais is adding, it's really a critical point, and thank you very much for joining, actually, even if it's late, but it's a remarkable input. Thank you, Farais.
Thank you very much. Dr. Firas will be one of Majlis Al-Khonji's guests in the upcoming sessions. Thank you, Dr. Firas. Mr. Khalil Al-Blushi, please go ahead.
Thank you, Reham. Thank you, Dr. Sausan. I want just to a couple of points to comment on. I echo what Dr. Faras was saying. The price at the moment to export hydrogen is not really lucrative now. It doesn't look good and all that. But this should not put us off from what we are doing. At least we should focus on in-house, in local. Let's go green internally first, and then with the R&D that we see, with the technologies, the prices will come for sure down. I mean, the transport will always be an issue, or it is an issue until we solve things like the design of ships, the scalability of things like this. I know there are the last 10 years there were some pilot projects here and there, but they were very geographically very limited, and from size-wise also limited, let alone the regulatory framework that has to come with it. Another thing that the challenge with transporting hydrogen, for example, from countries to countries without pipeline, is the safety aspects. This has to be, hydrogen is not necessarily a safe commodity to take around. On ships, of course, the volume has to be considered. But I am really happy to see that Oman in general, government, companies, and particularly happy that the academia is doing a lot of research into this aspect. We are, yes, it looks like early stages, but a lot of people are at early stages. The whole world is at early stages, although we know the issues for the last 20, 30 years. But it is a good indication of what we are doing to this huge interest in getting to net zero someday somewhere. But it is important also the focus should be in Oman is to make Vision 2040 a success. We should have learned from the past. And Vision 2040 says, particularly the environment and natural resources is really one of the main priorities in the vision, with a strategic direction, effective balance, and resilience ecosystem to protect the environment. It comes with 7 kind of objectives, and these are part of it. So as a country, it is good that we are working towards this. So commend Dr. Sausan and her team, and Dr. Faras, I know he is very much into this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Khalil.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khalil Al-Blushi. There is Nasr Al-Barwani. You have any other question, please? Would you like to come in?
Yes, so my question will be directed to Mr. Blarkin. I don't know if I said the name correctly, but you mentioned something about the oil and gas vessels, and I was just wondering, why did the UK ban those type of vessels?
Why did the UK what, sorry? Can you say that again?
Why did the UK ban the oil and gas vessels?
Well, I don't think they've banned the oil and gas. We are still producing oil and gas right now.
No, I mean the vessels that you mentioned when producing hydrogen. I think you say that you guys are not allowed to use some type of vessels.
We're not quite hearing what you're saying there. Can you just repeat that last bit?
So I thought you said that the UK is not allowing to use some type of vessels that are used in oil and gas. So when producing hydrogen, you guys cannot use the same vessels as producing oil and gas.
No, there is in the oil industry, there is a mobile fleet. These are drill ships, semi-submersibles, jackups, and they have been traditionally used in the offshore industry as exploration vessels. So they go to find if there is oil at a particular source, and if there is oil at a particular source, then a platform is put in the place to produce the oil and gas and to bring it onshore. Because of the demand now is reduced and has been reducing now for 20 years in the offshore industry, we have a lot of these vessels doing nothing. They are just sitting in shipyards and rig repair yards around the world doing nothing. But these vessels are big, strong vessels, and they are suitable for being a mobile fleet of power producing energy. Even some of these are so big that they can include a process facility for converting that electrical power to green hydrogen.
Okay.
So it is our plan to use the existing fleet around the world for enable us to produce the green hydrogen. That way, we've got a ready-made vessel, so we can start straight away. You know, we're doing something about a carbon footprint, because otherwise these vessels would be scrapped or cut up or whatever I have to do, and that requires energy to do that, obviously, as well. So it's not actually a UK thing, it's our company thing that we're producing. There is a lot of separate green hydrogen projects in the UK also, but we think ours is a more practicable solution to getting moving fairly quickly on this.
Yeah.
And also at a lower price, because like the previous gentleman said, we're not sure exactly how much green hydrogen is going to be worth in the future. You know, if it was £5,000 per kilogram, then it would be clearly a commercial decision. Right now, it's more of a conscious decision, because we're damaging the planet, that we have to do something.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Also, because you guys already have the vessels, so you guys will not have to start from scratch.
That's right. That's perfectly correct. These vessels, there are about 500 of these vessels around the world, where companies are trying to get them back to drilling, but there is no demand for these vessels. So we're just repurposing the vessels for green hydrogen rather than as they used to be used to produce oil.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Sausan. Thank you, Mr. Larkin. Mr. Khalil Al-Blushi, back to you if you have any other question.
No, I don't have. I just wanted to comment on the offshore vessels.
Yeah.
I mean, the retrofitting of something like this, the difference of the pipelines, for example, we're talking about, if you go to LNG is minus 160, you bring it, but hydrogen is about minus 250 to make it liquid. So the so-called cryogenic pipelines need to be retrofitted on all these vessels, where I don't know the economics, how it will work. Probably sometimes better to have a new vessel for something like this, instead of using the typical fuel pipelines. Just as a comment. Thank you.
Well, our indication is that is not the case, and remember, these vessels are mobile vessels, so it's not a case of running a pipeline 500 kilometers from the vessel to the shoreline. We can be literally 1 kilometer from the shoreline and have a pipeline coming from the vessel there. So, you know, the mobility of these vessels makes that a relatively easy job. Obviously, there is engineering challenges involved there that we have to look at, but it certainly looks to be, on our investigative work that we've done, a lower cost version and a greener way of doing things than what is also being planned in the UK right now.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Khalil, Mr. Larkin. I think there was just one question that maybe we have covered it, but Dr. Sausan, if you would like to, it's about the government initiatives or the government, what they do to speed up the hydrogen projects. So if you can just shed the light on that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Reham. I'm about to answer this. I'm checking the chat together with you, and I'm about to answer. In my opinion, I think the government already led the visibility study for hydrogen in Oman, hydrogen economy in Oman. And this itself a big movement. It's not easy to tell your roadmap suddenly like this, what you are expecting as an outcome. I think this is a nice effort from them. They also encouraging the R&D, they encouraging centers who are dealing with those topics. They are supporting. And when I say government, especially the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation, they're supporting. Maybe it's a little, it's not obvious, but I witnessed great support from governmental arm. It is a slow, I totally agree with you. It's things are usually slow. Why it took us 2 years to announce our roadmap? I totally agree with you, but I care also about the output to that project already on the land. They are talking about them. They are shaking hand with the off-takers. So maybe it's also us, the one who should push it a little bit. When I would love to encourage the R&D direction in Oman, I should go and map the need from now and start to be proactive and try to do it and then hunt the fund for it. I agree with you, it's slow, but also it is our duty and responsibility to speed it up.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Would any of our guests would like to ask any questions before we close our session today? Mr. John, any question from anyone, please?
I would like to just clarify the conferences and internships that we're planning on providing. So at this moment, the most we're going to do is research. And then afterward, then I think that's when maybe will be provided by cost to start experimenting. These projects are, we have already started on planning on producing hydrogen.
Thank you, Nasra.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any more questions, please, or comments? Thank you very much. We shall summarize this session with back to you, Mr. Mike. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reham. A huge thank you to you, Dr. Sausan. I think you've brought, for most of us, certainly me, quite a complicated subject, certainly one that our knowledge is not so great, but we hear a lot about these days. And you brought it very articulately and helped starting by explaining the range of colors of hydrogen, 8, and explaining carefully the different processes and the different sources. And if I've been tracking you carefully, it seems like for Oman, probably green hydrogen is something quite interesting. Probably others, but green hydrogen. You certainly got our interest when you look at your demand curve. So I evaluate that certainly for the next few years, up to about 2030, we can see around the world, including Oman, academics, government, industry, R&D collaborating and putting in place infrastructure from which demand will really start to increase up to about 2050. So now is a very important time to have listened to a presentation of this type from you. I understand that there's 2 aspects, and I wasn't so clear on this before. The first is an alternative economy, an alternative fuel supply, and one that is green. But this point you make, but don't forget, and I think Dr. Faris echoed this and put this point very carefully and clearly as well, the need to protect our planet, that there is a cost to the planet today from fossil fuels, and the need for another fuel. And I thought Dr. Talal expanded very carefully. He comes like me from the classic, well, what's the balance sheet going to look like? What's the profit and loss account going to look like? What's the cash flow? But it's a new balance sheet. It's one probably where not just our government, but something, I think one of the examples was the United Nations, a global approach, a global policy, a global set of rules as to how we balance those that are heavy producers of carbon to those that are helping reduce carbon. There's a cost, and somehow, whether it's through new types of regulation or taxation or something, but there has to be an appropriate cost, because right now we're seeing, Khalil Al-Baluchi was saying, the dollar cost per kilogram at about 6 is quite high. It's interpreted as being quite high, but we will see with innovation and new technologies and larger production that probably this will come down quite quickly to workable rates of around $1 per kilogram, something like this. But you kept saying, I've got it 3 times. It's really important that this is driven by the off-taker. We've got somehow, this is an issue caused by carbon. It's caused by an absolute need for new ways to reduce the impact on a country, on a population, on the world. So the off-taker and their reasons for wanting hydrogen have to be understood and then meshed with the area, the country that can supply this clean fuel. I thought you made a great point there. And then you skillfully identified that here in Oman, we're working very smoothly, progressively forward with initiatives from our government, 9, projects in industry, 5. We have your hybrid plant in SQU, and probably we will hear soon of new relationships, new investment, new initiatives, possibly quite large scale in this sector here in Oman. You've achieved a great deal in this time, Dr. Sausan. Thank you so much from Majlis Al-Khonji, from all of us, for giving us such an interesting speech. You're a very clever lady. Thank you very much indeed. Shukran jazeelan.
Thank you very much, Mike. I think you make it too heavy to address me. I'm here still to learn together with you and will appreciate all your comments. It can inspire us to solve our problems. The idea all coming to do all this job for hydrogen, it came like a small brainstorming like this, and great ideas can do great things in the future. Thank you very much for Al-Khonji also to invited me, give me this opportunity to present just a bit of information about the hydrogen. And thank you, Riham, for your kind moderation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sausan, for this very informative talk. And thank you for all our guests for their active participation. Mr. Mike, thank you for the summary. And thank you for all our guests from the UK. Until we see you next Saturday with a new guest and a new topic, keep safe and goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Susan. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Khalil.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Many thanks. Very, very interesting.